Welcome back, McFly subscribers. Today we're going to be tying the Humpy, one of the highest floating natural material Mayfly imitations. I will discuss this fly further in the video, as I'm sure you want to get started tying right away. But in case you haven't seen this channel before, this is McFly Angler.
Starts now.
Okay, let's get started tying. Place the hook securely in your vise. For a hook, I'm using Resin's Barbless Dry Fly 100 in size 14. Now these are a standard dry fly hook, as they don't have too long or too short of a shank, and they have a down eye. Now if you have trouble tying these, try using a longer shank dry fly hook, as the extra room might make it a little bit easier. Okay, we're going to need some thread, and I'm using Viva's 10-aught in pale yellow today, which is a popular color to tie these in. Another popular color is orange, and I've seen these tied in black, brown, olive, and much more. Okay, start your thread right behind the hook eye, and snip or snap off the waist. Then bring your thread down to the midpoint of the hook. For the tail, I'm using this moose body hair. Select about a half dozen, or maybe slightly more fibers, and snip them off the swatch. Then pull out the underfur, and usually you can do this with your fingers. Now place the fibers in a stacker with the tips down and give them a stack. Pull them out with your left hand. Now I accidentally selected too many here, so I'm pulling a few out. Okay, that looks good there. Measure out your tail to about a hook shank length to a half a hook shank length. Now I personally like the half hook shank length, and transfer that measurement to your other hand, and tie them in, bringing your thread all the way down to the start of the hook bend. I like using moose body fibers because they don't flare out as much as deer hair does. Okay, pull the butt ends of the fibers up and snip them off. Now bring your thread up to about the third mark on the hook shank. Honestly, I went up just a couple wraps too far. Okay, now we need some deer hair, and this all-purpose will work just fine. We need quite a bit, so snip off a fair amount off the swatch. Then grasp the tips tightly and pull out some of the underfur. However, for a clump this large, you need a comb to get all the underfur out, and a cheap Walmart or dollar store comb will work just fine. Comb out all the underfur and then place it in a stacker to align the tips. Then pull them out of the stacker with your right hand this time. Okay, let's measure out about a hook shank length, and then tie these in with a pinch wrap like this, but make a second wrap before binding down. When you bind these down, pull the thread towards you like so. Now move your fingers back slightly and out of the way, and start making about a half dozen wraps rearward, tightening with every few wraps. Now you can let go of the bunch. Okay, so we need a lot of hair for the wings, however the body needs quite a bit less. So I start trimming off the butt ends around the fly, especially the ones on the bottom. You want to leave about this much. Now we need to stand the tips up, so pull them up and back and make a bunch of wraps in front of the hairs to form a thread dam that will hold them upright. You might have to do this a couple times. Okay, let's separate this clump into two separate clumps and make X wraps between them to keep them separated. Sometimes you get some fibers that won't cooperate and will angle downward. If so, go ahead and clip a few off if you need. And honestly, this probably wouldn't be needed if I selected just a few less fibers than I did originally. So maybe select slightly less than the original stack. Okay, continue making more X wraps to help keep the wings separated. And now we need to post each individual wing. And this is probably the most tricky part of the fly. If you post too tightly, the wings will flare out, which you don't want. But too loose and the thread will not stay. So this will probably take you a few frustrating flies before you get the hang of this. And in all honesty, I'm not the best at doing these wings either. And I've tied hundreds of these. If your bodkin is too tight and you cannot seem to adjust it any looser like mine, then wrap around the hook shank twice before trying to pull and get more thread. As if you pull too hard on the wing, it will flare. Okay, let's not fully post these yet, just make a few wraps to gather the hairs together. We will finish posting later. Let's bring our thread back to behind the wings, and start making many wraps to compress the clipped deer hair. Now try to gather all the butt ends together, and hold them above the hook shank like so. Then start making touching wraps rearward, compressing the hair as you go. This will help keep the deer hair on top of the hook shank. Also watch the tip of your hook, as you can fray your thread with it like I did here. Okay, tie back to the start of the tail, and check to make sure that there isn't any thread showing under the hair. Make a few more wraps if there is. Then start wrapping up and down the abdomen many times, forming a fat and sort of rounded abdomen. This will help form that iconic abdomen shape where this fly gets the name, the Humpy. Just try to keep this as smooth as possible. You want this to be about as fat as half a hook shank gap. Okay, gather the butt ends, trying not to mess too much with the tail. This can be tough to do, especially with these shorter deer hair fibers. So if you can find a swatch with longer hair, this will be much easier. Okay, try to make all the fibers straight and directly on top of the hook. Then make a wrap over them. Pinch the clump so it won't rotate, and then bind down tight. Then make another wrap and bind that down as well. Okay, let's clip off all the butt ends. Okay, once all cut off, let's clean up that section with some wraps. Now here I'm trying to clean up the underside of the fly, making it as smooth as possible, which will make wrapping the hackle on a further step a bit easier. Okay, now I'm going to finish posting my wings, and get these as together as possible. When you're happy with the wings, then bring your thread back to the start of the thorax here. So a bit of a trick, and some might say it's a cheat, but I like to get some of this Solarez ultra thin resin, which has a handy paintbrush in the cap for easy application. Paint a little on the base of the wing, one by one, and then gather the fibers together and give it a quick zap with your UV light. This will hold those pesky hairs that won't cooperate together. Like I said, some might call this a cheat, but I find it makes those wings much neater looking. Okay, now we need some hackle, and today I'm going to use both grizzly and brown. And these are rooster saddle feathers, perfect for dry flies. Now I'm looking for a size 14 hackle here, and you can see that this one barely reaches out to the 14 ring. So it's on the small side of 14, but it'll work just fine. Okay, let's get the same size with the brown. If you don't have a hackle gauge, then you can test this on a bare hook. Wrap it around the hook and make sure it extends past the hook point. And you want it between right past the hook point and about 1.5 times the length of the hook point. Okay, let's prepare these feathers for tie-in. Cut off the first few inches of a brand new feather, as those fibers aren't usable. Then strip off a bit of the fibers, exposing a bare thread, about this long. Now a hackle feather has two sides. This is the top part, and you can see the underside is dull, and the top is darker. Hold the feather so the top is facing you, and strip off a couple fibers on the far side of the stem like this. This is going to help this wind on with the hackle feathers pointing back a little bit. Okay, do the same thing with the other feather if you're using two colors. Tie both of the feathers in so the bare stem doesn't extend past the wings, and there is still a little bit of bare stem sticking out rearward. I like to wrap back up on them and bind down very tight, before moving my thread up to behind the hook eye. Now some people like to wrap these on both at the same time, but I personally like to tie them in one at a time. So separate the two feathers and start wrapping up the hook shank. Make 2 to 3 wraps behind the wing and then jump in front of the wing and try to make at least 2 wraps in front. Then capture the hackle, which can be tricky without trapping some fibers. To do this a little bit easier, make sure you pull the hackle towards the hook eye. Then when your thread passes the hackle, pull it back rearward towards the hook bend. This will help keep the fibers back out of the hook eye. Inevitably though, you're going to trap a couple fibers. Okay, let me move the camera so you can see a bit easier, and I can too. Okay, once captured, snip off the feather as close as you can. Now let's do the same thing with the grizzly hackle. Trying to wrap between the previous hackle. Do your best to get 2 wraps behind the wings and 2 in front as well. If you can't though, no worries. Just get as much as you can. Now when you capture the second hackle, you're going to trap even more fibers, because you will be wrestling with the other hackle's fibers as well. So just do your best and then trim off the waist. Okay, now let's pull some of the fibers rearward and wrap back up onto them. This will help to angle them back and out of the hook eye. Now whip finish your fly. Make sure and cement the head, and I really like that ultra thin UV resin that I use for the wings. Try not to get any in the hook eye, and I think I might have here, and that's okay. Just run a bit of wire through the hook eye, and it will clear that out before you cure the resin with your UV light. This is going to make that fly super durable. And okay, the fly is now finished. Now to be fully transparent here, this didn't turn out all that great. I'm not the best at tying these, and part of it is that I'm using a lower quality deer hair swatch, so I probably need to find something with longer fibers. And it also doesn't help that there's a camera between the fly and me, and a longer hook shank will give a bit more room to add a few more wraps to the hackle. But excuses aside, the honest truth is I'm just mediocre at tying these flies. However, I hope this video showed you all the steps involved in tying these, and it will be up to you to decide if you want to spend the effort in tying the Humpy, as they are somewhat time consuming and difficult to tie. However, there's really not many Mayfly patterns out there that float quite as well as these. Do you need to hold up a heavy-weighted nymph? These will do it. Are you fishing fast-moving riffles? These won't get sunk. Are you trying to skate a Mayfly across the top of the water? Well, this is going to be one of the better options for that technique. So I do recommend giving it a try, as even if you're just as bad at tying these as me, they're still going to be successful at fooling trout for you. While this fly won't win any beauty awards, it will still catch fish, which is all that counts. So I do recommend giving the fly a try, even if it seems intimidating. It will help you improve your tying skills with some advanced techniques. And if you mess it up, you're still going to be able to catch some nice fish on it. Alright, well there we go. We are 4 patterns into May's series tying Mayfly patterns, and I'm almost done filling up this box. I started off this series with the classic Adams fly, and then tied the parachute Adams for you all, and last week I tied the Comparadun. Now I'll link to that series at the end of this video so you can watch them all. And next week I will finish up the Mayfly Dry series with the Last Chance Cripple fly. So make sure you subscribe and click that bell notification so you don't miss any future videos, like this Last Chance Cripple. Oh, in case you were wondering, I do still sell these magnetic-backed fly boxes on Amazon with free shipping. They are waterproof, which will keep your flies dry until you want to fish with them, and super slim, fitting in most shirt pockets for quick runs to the water. Or you can fit multiple in a chest pack, allowing you to organize your boxes by fly type, like this Mayfly dry box. Plus, the magnets are strong enough to even hold dry flies in place. Here I am turning the box upside down and shaking it, and all the flies are still in their compartments. This will keep wind or clumsiness from causing you to lose all your flies. I will link to my Amazon storefront below in the description section of this video if you're interested. Also, don't forget to check out my sponsor Resin Fly. They made the hooks I use today, but they also make some of the best fly rods and reels for the money I have ever used. Best off, they're offering you all a discount. So if you're in the market for a new rod or a bunch of hooks or beads, go to www.risenfly.com and type in McFly at checkout, and they'll give you 15% off of your first order with them. Okay, thanks for watching. If you like this video, please do me a favor and click the like button for me. I will see you on the next video. Now you go catch some fish.